Chapter 1. Milan was a city of fashion, gold, and ghosts. For Nia Okeke, it was supposed to be the city of dreams. She was 23 years old, top of her class at the prestigious Istituto Marangoni, and a genius with a needle and thread. But talent didn't matter to the Italian government. Paperwork did. It was 3 a.m. on a rainy Tuesday in November. Nia was awake in her tiny studio apartment on the outskirts of the city. The room was cold, the heater having broken days ago, but the chill in her bones came from the letter sitting on her desk. The stamp was red and unforgiving. Visa denied. Departure required within 24 hours. She looked at her sketches pinned to the wall. Beautiful gowns where bold African prints met Italian silk. They looked like ghosts now. She packed her suitcase, not with clothes, but with her portfolio. If she was going back to Nigeria with nothing, she would at least take her art. Then the pounding started. Heavy fists banged against the wooden door, shaking the frame. "Policia, open the door." Nia froze. They weren't supposed to come until morning. She ran to the window and saw blue lights flashing against the wet pavement below. "No, no, please, not yet," she whispered. The door splintered open. 2 officers in dark uniforms stormed in. They didn't look like regular immigration officers. They looked rough, angry, and impatient. "Nia Okeke, you are in violation of Visa Code 404, the first officer barked. "I have until noon. The letter said noon," she cried. "The order was expedited. Grab her." They didn't let her get her shoes. They grabbed her arms, dragging her out of the apartment in her socks. She screamed, but the neighbors didn't open their doors. In this part of the city, you didn't look at the police. They threw her into the back of a black unmarked sedan, the metal cage separating her from the officers. The car sped off into the rain. Nia sat in the dark, shivering. She realized with a sickening jolt that they weren't driving toward the airport. They were driving toward the industrial district, the warehouses where people disappeared. "Where are you taking me? The airport is north," she yelled, panic rising in her throat. The officers didn't answer. They just lit cigarettes and laughed. "Please, I have money. I can pay a fine." The car turned down a narrow, unlit alleyway between 2 shipping containers and screeched to a halt. Nia's heart hammered against her ribs like a trapped bird. This was it. She wasn't getting deported. She was going to die here. Then headlights blinded them. A sleek, matte black Maserati was blocking the alley exit. Its engine purred with a low, dangerous growl. The officers froze. The driver's door of the Maserati opened and a man stepped out. He was tall, over 6'3", wearing a bespoke charcoal suit that cost more than the police car. He held a black umbrella but didn't open it, letting the rain hit him as he walked toward them with the casual confidence of a predator approaching trapped prey. It was Dante Moretti, the capo dei capi of Milan, the Shadow King. The police officers went pale. They scrambled out of the car, forgetting their guns. "Signor Moretti, we didn't know this was your territory tonight," the first officer stammered. "All of Milan is my territory," Dante replied. His voice was deep, smooth, and terrified Nia more than the screaming officers had. Dante stopped in front of the officer and looked at the man's badge. "You have something that belongs to me in the back seat." "The girl, she's just an illegal, sir. We were just—" "Handling trash?" Dante interrupted. He reached into his jacket. The officers flinched, thinking he was reaching for a gun. Instead, he pulled out a thick white envelope and slapped it against the officer's chest. "Go, before I decide to clean up the trash myself." The officers grabbed the money and didn't look back. They ran into the night, leaving the police car behind. Dante walked to the back door of the sedan and opened it. Nia scrambled backward, pressing herself against the other door, shaking violently. "Please, I don't have anything. I'm just a student." Dante leaned in. Up close, he was devastating. Sharp jawline, dark stubble, and eyes the color of espresso, dark, addictive, and bitter. He looked at her bare feet and frowned. Taking off his suit jacket, which smelled of tobacco and expensive leather, he wrapped it around her shoulders. "You are not a student anymore, Nia. Come." "Where? Who are you?" "My name is Dante, and I am the only reason you are not currently in a ditch." Nia looked at the rain, then at the empty alleyway. She had no choice. She took his hand. His grip was warm and firm. He led her to the Maserati, opened the door, and buckled her in. The drive took an hour. They left the dirty streets of Milan and drove up the winding roads toward Lake Como. Nia watched the city lights fade. Dante didn't speak. He drove with one hand on the wheel, calm and controlled. Finally, they pulled up to a massive estate. Iron gates opened automatically, revealing a palace of white stone and glass overlooking the black water of the lake. It was beautiful, and it was a fortress. Dante led her into the library, a room filled with ancient books and the smell of old money. A fire was crackling in the fireplace. "Sit," he commanded. Nia sat in a leather armchair, pulling his jacket tighter around herself. "Why did you save me?" Dante walked to his desk and picked up a file. He tossed it onto the coffee table in front of her. It fell open and Nia gasped. Inside were photos of her walking to school, sketching in the park, copies of her private designs. You You've been stalking me? I have been vetting you, Dante corrected. He poured 2 glasses of red wine and handed one to her. I own the House of Rossi, the fashion label you dream of working for. I know who owns Rossi. It's a holding company. I am the holding company. He sat on the edge of the desk, crossing his legs. Your talent is undeniable, Nia. You have fire. You see color in ways Italians have forgotten. So this is a job interview? You kidnapped me for a job? No, I kidnapped you for a proposal. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small black velvet box and placed it next to the file. Your visa is expired. By sunrise, your name will be in the system. You will be deported. You will lose your degree, your future, everything, he said matter-of-factly. I know, she whispered. I can fix it. I have judges in my pocket. I can make you a citizen tomorrow. And what is the price? Do I launder money for you? Dante laughed softly. He stood up and walked toward her. The atmosphere in the room changed, growing heavy and hot. He knelt down in front of her, now at eye level. He picked up the velvet box and opened it. A massive yellow diamond glittered in the firelight. I need a son, Nia, and I need him from a woman who is strong, someone who has fought for everything she has, someone like you. This is insane. You can't just buy a person, she argued, though her voice wavered. I am buying your safety. I am buying your dream. You want to be a world-famous designer? I will build you the biggest atelier in Milan. You want your family in Nigeria to live like kings? I will send them €1,000,000 tonight. All you have to do is wear this ring and give me a legacy. Nia looked at the ring, then she looked at the door. She knew the police were out there. She knew poverty was waiting for her back home. But this man, he was dangerous. She saw the darkness in his eyes. And if I say no? Then I open the front door. You walk out, the police pick you up in 10 minutes. It wasn't a choice. It was a gilded cage. Nia looked at him. She saw the hunger in his face. It wasn't just about an heir. She felt it. He wanted her. If I do this, it's just business, a contract. Call it what you want, Dante murmured. He took the ring from the box. He took her trembling hand and slid the cold metal onto her finger. It fit perfectly. Welcome home, Mrs. Moretti. Wait, there are terms, she stammered. I need my own room. I need to work. Dante stood up, pulling her with him until her body was flush against his. Nia gasped. She could feel the hard muscle of his chest, the heat of his body. He wasn't looking at her like a business partner. He was looking at her like a meal. He leaned down, his lips brushing the shell of her ear. You can have your room, you can have your work, he whispered, his voice vibrating through her. But read the fine print, Tesoro. You can go back to a country with nothing, or you can stay here as my queen. But a queen has one duty. His hand moved to her stomach, pressing firmly against the silk of her dress. Chapter 2. The morning sun hit the waters of Lake Como, turning the black expanse into a sheet of diamonds. But inside the Villa Moretti, the air was cold. Nia woke up in a bed large enough to sleep 4 people. The sheets were Egyptian cotton, the pillows filled with down, but the door was locked. She tried the handle. It turned, but the heavy wood didn't budge. Panic flared in her chest, a sharp, hot instinct that reminded her she was not a guest. She was an acquisition. She banged on the door. Hello? Open the door. A moment later, the lock clicked. The door opened. Standing there was not Dante, but a large man in a suit with a broken nose, a guard. Buongiorno, signora, he grunted. The Don is waiting for you on the terrace for breakfast. Nia didn't have clothes. She looked around the room and saw a wardrobe she hadn't noticed the night before. She opened it. It was full. Rows of silk dresses, cashmere sweaters, and designer heels. Everything was her size. Everything was expensive. And everything was chosen by him. She grabbed a simple white sundress, refusing the diamonds sitting on the vanity. She wasn't going to dress up for her jailer. She walked down the marble hallway, the guard trailing 2 steps behind her like a shadow. She found Dante on the terrace overlooking the lake. He was drinking espresso, reading a newspaper. He wore a crisp white shirt, sleeves rolled up, revealing tanned forearms corded with muscle. He looked like a model in a magazine, until you saw the gun holstered in his shoulder rig. He didn't look up. You slept late. It is 9 o'clock. You locked me in, Nia snapped, pulling out a chair. I am not a prisoner, Dante. We have a deal. Dante folded the newspaper. He looked at her, his dark eyes sweeping over the white dress. He looked disappointed by its simplicity, but he didn't comment. You are a target, Nia. My enemies know I brought a woman home. If you walk out that front gate, you will be snatched before you reach the main road. The lock is for your safety. And my job? You promised me the House of Rossi. I need to go to the city. Dante signaled to a waiter who placed a plate of fruit and pastries in front of Nia. "You are not going to the city. The city is messy. I brought the city here." He stood up and gestured for her to follow. He led her back inside, down the east wing of the villa. He stopped in front of a set of double doors and pushed them open. Nia gasped. It was an atelier, a massive, sun-drenched studio. There were dress forms, bolts of rare silk, velvet, and Ankara fabric flown in from Lagos. There were sewing machines, drafting tables, and walls covered with corkboard for sketches. It was a designer's paradise. "I had my team set it up while you slept," Dante said, leaning against the doorframe. "You will design for Rossi from here. My courier will take your sketches to the production house in Milan every evening." Nia walked into the room, running her fingers over a bolt of gold silk. It was everything she had ever wanted, a professional studio, unlimited resources. But then she looked at the windows. They were reinforced glass, and beyond the garden she could see the high perimeter wall topped with cameras. "It's beautiful," she whispered. Then she turned to him, her eyes hardening. "But it's a cage, a golden cage, but still a cage." Dante walked over to her. He invaded her space, backing her up against the cutting table. The scent of his cologne, sandalwood, and danger filled her nose. "You are a target, Tessero. The world is a cage, Tessero. At least I gave you the one with the best view." He reached out and tucked a loose braid behind her ear. His fingers lingered on her neck, checking her pulse. It was racing. "Work today," commanded softly. "Create something magnificent, because tonight you have a performance." "A performance?" "My family is coming for dinner. My cousin, Marco, my aunt, Isabella, the board of the syndicate." Nia felt a cold knot in her stomach. "Why?" "Because they need to see that you are real. They need to see that I am settling down." His eyes dropped to her stomach, heavy and possessive. "And they need to see that you are worthy of carrying the Moretti blood." "And if they don't like me?" Dante's expression didn't change, but the air around him grew colder. "Then they will try to destroy you. So do not be weak, Nia. Tonight, you are not a student. You are the queen. Wear the red dress in the closet and wear the diamond ring." He kissed her forehead, a dry, burning touch, and left her in her beautiful prison. The sun set, bleeding red across the lake, the driveway filled with black SUVs. Nia stood in front of the mirror. She had put on the red dress. It was silk, backless, and clung to her curves like a second skin. It was a dress designed to make men stare and women hate her. She looked at the yellow diamond ring on her finger. It felt heavy, like a shackle. She walked down the grand staircase. Dante was waiting at the bottom. He wore a tuxedo. When he saw her, he stopped adjusting his cuffs. His eyes went dark. He didn't smile, but the way he looked at her, like a starving man looking at a feast, made her knees weak. "Perfetta," he whispered as she reached him. He offered his arm. "Remember, do not look down. You look them in the eye." They walked into the dining room. 12 people sat around a long mahogany table. The air was thick with smoke and tension. At the far end sat Marco, Dante's cousin. He had a scar running through his eyebrow and a smile that looked like a knife wound. Next to him was Aunt Isabella, a woman dripping in pearls who looked at Nia as if she were a stain on the tablecloth. The room went silent as they entered. "Buonasera," Dante said, his voice booming. "Family, meet my wife, Nia Moretti." He pulled out the chair at his right hand, the seat of honor. Nia sat. The dinner was an interrogation disguised as a meal. "So, Nia, that is an unusual name. Where are you from exactly? Some village?" Nia cut her steak calmly. She could feel Dante tensing beside her, ready to strike, but she didn't need him to fight for her. She had grown up navigating the markets of Lagos. She knew how to handle hagglers and bullies. Nia said, "I am from Lagos, Signora," her voice smooth and regal. "It is a city of 20 million people. It makes Milan look like a quiet village." Marco laughed, a sharp barking sound. "Lagos, I hear it is chaotic, corrupt." Nia turned her dark eyes to Marco. "It is a place where only the strong survive, Marco. Much like this table, I imagine." Dante hid a smirk behind his wineglass. He liked that. "And what do you bring to this family?" Isabella pressed, her eyes narrowing. "Besides exotic appeal, we Morettis value tradition, heritage." "I bring the future," Nia said. She placed her hand on the table, letting the massive yellow diamond catch the chandelier light. It blinded Isabella for a second. "Your traditions are dying. Dante chose me because you need new blood, stronger blood." Silence stretched across the table. It was a bold move, disrespectful even. Marco leaned forward, his eyes flickering to Dante. She has a mouth on her, Dante. You let your women speak like men? Dante slammed his wine glass down. The sound echoed like a gunshot. She speaks because she is my equal. Anyone who disrespects her disrespects me. He looked around the table, daring anyone to challenge him. And if anyone has a problem with the mother of my future son, speak Mao so I can remove your tongue. Marco sat back, raising his hands in surrender. Just checking, cousin. Just checking if she has the spine for this life. She has more spine than you, Marco, Dante spat. The rest of the dinner passed in a blur of forced politeness. Nia played the part. She laughed when she was supposed to. She drank the expensive wine, but she felt the eyes on her. They were sharks circling, waiting for a drop of blood. When the last guest finally left, the heavy oak doors slammed shut. Dante turned to her in the foyer. The adrenaline of the fight was still rolling off him in waves. He looked dangerous, aroused. You did well, he said, stepping closer. They hate me, Nia said, pulling the diamond pins from her hair. Your aunt looks at me like I'm dirt. They fear you, he corrected. You, Dante corrected, because you are something they cannot control. He reached out, grabbing her waist and pulling her into him. The red dress slipped against his tuxedo. You looked magnificent in there, Nia. When you told Marco off, his eyes darkened. It made me want to take you right on the table. Nia put her hands on his chest to push him back, but the heat of his body was magnetic. Dante, stop. The performance is over. They are gone. Is it over? He backed her up against the wall of the foyer, trapping her. He leaned down, his forehead resting against hers. You talked about the future, Nia. You talked about my son. I was acting. You were promising, he growled. He moved his hand down to her hip, his grip bruising and possessive. Marco is making moves on my territory. He thinks I am distracted. He thinks I am weak. He kissed the sensitive spot below her ear, sending a shiver down her spine that she couldn't suppress. I need that air, Nia. Tonight. We have a contract, she breathed, her resolve weakening under his touch. I need time. Time is a luxury we don't have, he whispered against her neck. War is coming, Tesoro, and before the first shot is fired, I need to know you are bound to me forever. He scooped her up into his arms, carrying her toward the grand staircase. Nia didn't fight him. As he carried her up the stairs into the darkness of the second floor, she realized the dinner wasn't the dangerous part of the evening. This was. She was in the belly of the beast, and the beast was hungry. Chapter 3. 3 weeks passed. The Villa Moretti settled into a rhythm, tense and electric, like the air before a thunderstorm. Nia was no longer just the woman in the guest room. She was the mistress of the estate. The servants bowed when she walked by, the guards lowered their eyes out of respect and fear of what Dante would do if they looked too long. She spent her days in the sun-drenched atelier in the East Wing. Dante kept his promise. He gave her everything, rare silks from India, cashmere from Scotland, and a team of seamstresses flown in from Milan to execute her vision. The House of Rossi was being reborn, stitching by stitching, under her hands. But Dante was everywhere. He didn't hover, he didn't micromanage, he simply existed. He would stand in the doorway of the atelier for hours, silent, watching her work. He watched the way she bit her lip when she was focused. He watched the way her hips moved when she paced around a dress form. He was a predator studying his prey, waiting for the right moment to strike. And every night, in the massive bed overlooking the lake, he claimed her. It was no longer about the contract. It was about an insatiable hunger that seemed to grow the more he fed it. It was a Friday morning, the day of the photo shoot for the upcoming fall collection. The great hall of the villa had been transformed into a studio. Lights, cameras, and racks of clothes filled the space. A team of models, men and women, were buzzing around. Nia was in her element. She wore a black jumpsuit, her braids tied up in a high bun, a measuring tape draped around her neck. She moved with authority, directing the photographer, adjusting hemlines. No, the lighting is too harsh, she called out. I want it softer, like twilight. The photographer, a handsome Frenchman named Luc, smiled at her. Anything for you, Bella. From the balcony above, Dante watched. He held a tumbler of whiskey, though it was barely noon. His knuckles were white against the glass. He didn't like the way the photographer looked at her. He didn't like the way the male model, a tall Italian named Gio, smiled when Nia adjusted his lapel. Boss, a voice said behind him. It was Enzo, his head of security. The shipment from Naples is delayed. Marco was asking for a sit-down. Let him wait, Dante muttered, his eyes never leaving Nia. Down below, the shoot continued. Nia was adjusting the fit of a suit on Gio. The jacket was tight across the shoulders. Hold still, Nia murmured, her hand smoothing the fabric over the model's chest. Gio grinned, looking down at her. You have magic hands, Signora Moretti. It's a shame you are married. If you were free. He reached out, his hand resting casually on Nia's waist. It was a harmless gesture, friendly. But to Dante, it was a declaration of war. The glass in Dante's hand didn't break. He set it down on the railing with a terrifying calm. He walked down the stairs. The room didn't notice him at first, but then a wave of silence spread out from the staircase outward. The models stopped talking. The photographer lowered his camera. The air dropped 10 degrees. Dante walked straight to Gio. He didn't shout. He didn't run. He moved with the lethal grace of a panther. Take your hand off my wife, Dante said. His voice was low, hardly a whisper, but it carried across the silent room like a thunderclap. Gio froze. He snatched his hand back as if he had touched fire. Don Dante, I meant no disrespect. We were just... You were touching what does not belong to you, Dante interrupted. He stepped into Gio's personal space. Dante was an inch shorter than the model, but he loomed over him like a giant. You are here to wear the clothes, boy, not the designer. If you touch her again, I will break your fingers, and it is very hard to button a suit with broken fingers. Gio went pale. Understood, sir. Absolutely. Get out, Dante said. The shoot is over. But, Nia started. Everyone out, Dante roared, his control finally snapping. The room scrambled. Models grabbed their bags. The photographer packed his lenses in record time. Within 2 minutes, the great hall was empty. Only Nia and Dante remained. Nia was trembling, but not with fear, with rage. She marched up to him, throwing her measuring tape on the floor. Are you insane? That was the lead model. We launch in 2 weeks. I will buy you a new model, Dante said, adjusting his cuffs. One who knows his place. His place? He was doing his job. You embarrassed me, Dante. You acted like a barbarian. I acted like a husband. You acted like a jailer. Nia stepped closer, poking him in the hard wall of his chest. You don't own me, Dante. You own my debt. You own the company, but you do not own me. Dante caught her finger. He wrapped his hand around her fist, pulling her in until they were chest to chest. His eyes were wild, fueled by jealousy and adrenaline. Is that what you think? He growled. I think you are confusing the contract with reality, Nia hissed. Dante laughed darkly. He grabbed her waist with his other hand, lifting her up onto a table filled with silk fabric. He stepped between her legs, pinning her there. The contract is a piece of paper, Nia. This. He ran his nose along her jawline, inhaling her scent. This is reality. You are jealous, Nia whispered, her heart hammering against his chest. You are the most powerful man in Italy, and you are jealous of a model. I am not jealous, Nia. I am territorial. There is a difference. He looked into her eyes. The anger was fading, replaced by that intense, dark heat that always left her breathless. I drive you mad, Nia. I watch you. I watch you breathe. I watch you sleep. When that boy touched you, I wanted to burn the city down. Dante, tell me, he demanded, his voice dropping to a vulnerable grit she had never heard before. Tell me you don't feel it too. Tell me you are just enduring me until the debt is paid. Nia looked at him. She looked at the scars on his knuckles, the tension in his jaw. She thought about the way he had saved her from the police, the way he had built the atelier just to see her smile. She realized with a terrifying clarity that she wasn't just enduring him. She reached up, her hands tangling in his dark hair. I can't, she whispered. Dante groaned, a sound of pure defeat and victory. He crushed his mouth to hers. It wasn't like the other nights. It wasn't calculated. It was chaotic. He kissed her like he was trying to breathe her in, to merge their souls so she could never leave him. Nia kissed him back, matching his fire. In that empty hall, surrounded by half-finished gowns and spilled pins, the line between captor and captive vanished completely. Later that night, the villa was quiet. Nia lay in Dante's arms in the master bedroom. The moon cast long shadows across the sheets. Dante was asleep, his breathing deep and even. His arm was thrown heavy over her waist, anchoring her to the bed. Nia stared at the ceiling. She placed a hand on her stomach. She hadn't told him yet. She was late, 3 days late. It might be stress, it might be the change in diet, or it might be the contract fulfilling itself. A knot of anxiety tightened in her chest. If she was pregnant, the deal was almost done. Once the heir was born, the debt was cleared. She would be free to go. She looked at Dante's sleeping face. He looked younger when he slept, the harsh lines of his face smoothed out. Do I want to go? She asked herself, or have I fallen in love with the cage? Suddenly, the silence of the night was shattered. Boom! A massive explosion shook the villa. The glass of the balcony doors shattered inward, raining shards onto the carpet. The car alarms in the driveway started screaming. Dante was awake instantly. He rolled over, covering Nia's body with his own, as debris flew through the room. Stay down, he shouted, reaching under the pillow for his gun. Dante, what is happening? Nia screamed, clinging to his arm. Dante looked at the window. Orange flames were licking up the side of the east wing. The atelier, her studio, it was burning. He looked at her, his face a mask of cold, lethal fury. Marco, he spat. He grabbed his phone. Enzo, status. He pulled Nia off the bed, dragging her toward the heavy panic room door hidden in the closet. Dante, the designs, the collection, Nia cried, looking toward the flames. Forget the designs. Dante shoved her into the panic room. He didn't come for the dresses, Nia. He came for you. He checked the magazine of his gun. Stay here. Do not open this door for anyone but me. Where are you going? Dante kissed her hard, a goodbye that tasted of ash and fear. I am going to remind my cousin why they call me the devil. He slammed the steel door shut, sealing her in darkness. Nia slid down the wall to the floor, her hands shaking as she covered her stomach. The war had started, and she was the prize. The panic room was a vault of silence. While the world above burned, Nia sat on the cold steel floor, hugging her knees. The walls were lined with monitors, but the screens were black. The power had been cut. The only light came from the emergency red LEDs striping the floor, casting the room in the color of blood. She had been in there for 2 hours. Her hand rested instinctively on her stomach. The nausea came in waves, rolling through her not from fear, but from the biological shift happening inside her. She knew. A woman always knows. She stood up, needing to pace. The room was sparse, a cot, a shelf of MREs, a bathroom, and a heavy metal desk bolted to the floor. Restless, Nia walked to the desk. It was cluttered with Dante's contingency plans, maps of escape routes, passports with different names, stacks of cash, and a thick leather binder stamped with the crest of the syndicate, the Commissione. Curiosity warred with respect for his privacy. Curiosity won. Nia opened the binder. It was a legal decree, an ultimatum from the ruling families of Italy. She scanned the legal jargon, her eyes widening as she pieced the Italian words together. Clause 7, Succession Crisis. Due to the assassination of the previous Don, Dante Moretti is granted temporary stewardship. Full authority will only be ratified upon the conception of a legitimate heir within 12 months of assuming the seat. Deadline, December 1st. Nia froze. She looked at the digital clock on the wall. It was November 15th. He didn't just want a legacy, he was on a deadline. If he didn't produce a child in 2 weeks, he lost everything. The territory, the money, the power. It would all go to the next in line, Marco. The realization hit her harder than the explosion had. The romance, the jealousy at the photo shoot, the obsession. It wasn't love. It wasn't even lust. It was desperation. He had seduced her because he was running out of time. Every time he touched her, he wasn't making love to his wife. He was punching a time card to save his empire. You bastard, she whispered, tears stinging her eyes. It was all a lie. The heavy steel wheel of the door groaned, the locks disengaged with a series of loud clanks. The door swung open. Dante stood there. He looked like he had walked through hell. His white shirt was gray with ash and soaked in blood on the left sleeve. He was breathing hard, sweat streaking through the suit on his face. Nia! He rushed inside, his eyes scanning her for injuries. He reached for her, his hands trembling. Are you hurt? Did the smoke get in? Nia took a step back, slapping his hands away. Dante froze. Nia? Don't touch me, she hissed. She grabbed the leather binder from the desk and threw it at his chest. It hit him with a heavy thud and fell to the floor, open to the succession clause. Dante looked down at the document. His expression didn't change. He didn't look guilty. He looked tired. You read my private files, Dante said, his voice flat. I read the price tag you put on my womb, Nia screamed. The anger gave her strength, burning away the fear of the explosion. December 1st. That's why you needed me so fast. That's why you forced the marriage. You're not the king of Milan, Dante. You're a temp hire about to get fired. Nia, stop, he warned, stepping over the binder. Did you ever care? She demanded, tears finally spilling over. The dinner, the way you looked at me, was any of it real? Or was I just the fastest way to keep your crown? Dante closed the distance between them. He grabbed her shoulders, ignoring her struggle. It started as business, he growled, shaking her slightly to make her listen. Yes, I needed an heir. Yes, the deadline is real. But what happened between us the last few weeks? That is real, Nia. You know it is. I don't know anything anymore. You manipulated me. You made me feel safe in a trap. I did what I had to do to survive and to keep you safe. Safe? Nia laughed hysterically. My studio is burning. Your cousin just blew up our house. I'm not safe with you, Dante. I'm a target because of you. We are leaving, Dante said, his tone shifting from defensive to commanding. The villa is compromised. Marco has brought mercenaries from Naples. We have to go to the safe house in the Alps. I'm not going anywhere with you. Dante's eyes went cold. You don't have a choice, not while you are carrying my child. The heir left the room. Nia went still. I never told you. Dante's gaze dropped to her stomach, then back to her eyes. The corner of his mouth twitched, a ghost of a triumphant smile. You didn't have to, Tesoro. I know your body better than you do. You haven't touched your wine in 3 days. You're flushed. You are pregnant. He moved his hand to her belly. This time she didn't push him away. She was too paralyzed by the truth. That child, he whispered, is the future of this city, and you are the mother of a king. So you will get in the car, Nia, or I will carry you. The drive was a nightmare. They were in a convoy of 3 armored SUVs, speeding through the winding, rain-slicked roads along the edge of Lake Como. Nia sat in the back of the middle vehicle, as far away from Dante as possible. Outside, the storm was raging. Inside, the silence was deafening. Dante was on his phone, barking orders in rapid-fire Italian. He was coordinating a counterstrike. He was ordering executions. He was a general at war. Nia looked out the window at the black water below. She felt trapped. If she stayed, she was a pawn in his game. If she ran, the immigration police, or worse, Marco, would catch her. We are 10 minutes from the airstrip, Dante said, hanging up. He looked at her. Nia, please. Once we are in the mountains, I will explain everything. I will fix this. You can't fix a lie, Dante, she said softly. Suddenly, the lead SUV exploded. The fireball lit up the night sky, flipping the heavy vehicle into the air. It crashed down in front of them, a burning wreck blocking the narrow road. Ambush! Enzo screamed from the driver's seat. Get down! Dante threw himself over Nia as their driver slammed on the brakes. The SUV fishtailed, skidding sideways and slamming into the guardrail. Metal screeched against metal. The car teetered on the edge of the cliff before slamming back down onto all 4 wheels. Glass shattered as gunfire erupted from the trees lining the road. Stay down, Dante roared. He kicked the door open, dragging Nia out onto the wet asphalt. Enzo, cover fire. Bullets pinged off the armored doors. It was chaos. Dante pulled his gun, firing blindly into the dark woods. He grabbed Nia's hand, pulling her toward the 3rd SUV. Run, Nia, get to the back car. They ran, bent low. The rain soaked them instantly. Dante, look out! Nia screamed. A figure stepped out from behind the burning wreckage of the first car. It was a man with a submachine gun. Dante shoved Nia behind him. He raised his pistol and fired 2 shots. The man dropped, but it was a distraction. While Dante was engaged, 2 more men rappelled down from the embankment above. They weren't shooted to kill. They were moving with precision. One of them swung a rifle butt, catching Dante in the temple. Dante went down hard. No! Nia screamed. She lunged for him, but strong arms grabbed her from behind. A cloth soaked in chloroform was pressed against her face. The chemical smell burned her nose. Dante! She choked out, clawing at the man's arm. Dante was on his knees, blood pouring from his head. He tried to lift his gun, his vision swimming. He saw the men dragging Nia toward a black van that had pulled up from a side road. Let her go! Dante roared, a primal sound of rage. He fired, hitting one of the kidnappers in the leg, but they didn't stop. They threw Nia into the van. The last thing Nia saw before the darkness took her was Dante, stumbling forward, reaching for her, his face a mask of absolute terror. Then the van doors slammed shut. Nia woke up to the smell of old stone and damp earth. Her head was pounding. She tried to move, but her hands were zip-tied to the arms of a wooden chair. She blinked her eyes open. She was in a wine cellar, or a dungeon. The walls were rough brick, and the only light came from a single bulb swinging overhead. Finally, a voice said, Nia looked up. Marco Moretti sat on a wine barrel across from her. He was cleaning his nail files with a long, serrated knife. He wore a pristine suit, untouched by the chaos of the night. "Welcome to the family reunion, Nia," he smiled. It was a shark's smile. "Where is Dante?" Nia rasped. "Dead, alive, it doesn't matter," Marco shrugged. "He failed. He couldn't protect his territory, and he couldn't protect you." He stood up and walked toward her. He circled her chair, the heels of his shoes clicking on the stone floor. "You know, I was going to kill you. A message to my cousin. A dead wife for a dead legacy." He stopped behind her, leaning down to whisper in her ear. "But then my men told me you were throwing up in the van, and I did the math." Nia's blood ran cold. She grew rigid. Marco walked back around to face her. He pointed the knife at her stomach. "You are the golden ticket, aren't you?" He laughed, a cruel, echoing sound. "Dante thinks he's fighting a war for territory, but he doesn't know the rules have changed." Marco tapped the flat of the blade against her cheek. "I don't need to kill Dante to take the crown, Nia. I just need to wait until you deliver that baby, and then I'll raise the heir myself." Nia stared at him with hatred burning in her eyes. "He will come for me. He will burn this city to ash to find me." Marco's smile vanished. "Let him try. He is a king without a castle, and you are just a bird in a new cage." Marco turned and walked to the iron door. He banged on it twice. "Make yourself comfortable, princess. You're going to be here for a long time. 9 months, to be exact." The heavy door slammed shut. The lock clicked. Nia was alone in the dark, but she wasn't crying anymore. She looked down at her stomach. "Hold on," she whispered to the life inside her. "Daddy is coming." Chapter 5. The rain had stopped, but the streets of Milan were about to flood with blood. Dante Moretti stood in the armory of his secondary safe house. A bandage was wrapped tight around his head, spotting red where the wound was still fresh. His tuxedo shirt was gone, replaced by tactical gear, a black Kevlar vest over a black t-shirt. He was loading magazines. Click, click, click. The sound was rhythmic, hypnotic, and terrifying. Enzo, his head of security, limped into the room. His arm was in a sling. "Don Dante," Enzo said, his voice grave. "We located the van. It's at the old vinery on the outskirts of Tuscany, Marco's stronghold." "How many men?" Dante asked. He didn't look up. He slid a combat knife into his boot. 30, maybe 40. They are heavily armed. It's a fortress, Dante. If we go in front on, it's a suicide mission." Dante finally looked up. His eyes were void of humanity. There was no calculation, no politics left in them. Only death. "I don't care about the odds, Enzo. I don't care if the whole Italian army is guarding that door." He picked up an assault rifle and slung it over his shoulder. "Marco took my wife. He took my child." Dante racked the slide of his pistol. "I'm not going there to negotiate. I'm going there to slaughter them all." "The syndicate won't like this," Enzo warned. "Open war in the streets? It breaks the truce." "Burn the truce," Dante growled, walking past him. "Burn it all down." Inside the damp cellar of the vinery, Nia was shivering. The cold was seeping into her bones. She tugged at the zip ties binding her wrists. They bit into her skin, drawing blood, but she didn't stop. She wasn't going to wait for Marco to decide her fate. The heavy iron door creaked open. Marco walked in, holding a tray of food. He looked smug. "You need to eat," he said, placing the tray on a barrel. "My nephew needs his strength." "You are a vulture, Marco," spat Nia, "waiting for scraps because you couldn't hunt for yourself." Marco's face twisted. He backhanded her. The force of the blow knocked the chair over. Nia crashed onto the stone floor, her shoulder taking the impact. Pain shot through her arm, but she didn't cry out. She rolled onto her back, glaring up at him. "Careful," Marco hissed. "I need the incubator intact. I don't need the mouth." Suddenly, a low rumble shook the ground. It wasn't thunder. It was an explosion. Then another, and another. The single light bulb overhead swung wildly and shattered, plunging the room into darkness. Gunfire erupted from the floor above, screaming, the sound of automatic weapons tearing through wood and flesh. Marco froze. Impossible. "He's here," Nia whispered in the dark. A fierce, wild smile spread across her face. "Run, Marco. The devil is home." Dante moved through the corridors of the vinery like a phantom. The power was cut. The emergency lights bathed the hallways in strobing red. He didn't take cover. He walked forward, firing with precise, lethal economy. Bang! A guard on the stairs fell. Bang! A man peering around a corner dropped. Enzo and the remaining loyal soldiers were behind him, clearing the rooms, but Dante was the tip of the spear. He stepped over bodies, ignoring the bullets whizzing past his head. He reached the heavy oak door leading to the cellar stairs. 2 guards blocked it. Dante didn't slow down. He dropped his rifle, which was empty, and drew 2 pistols. He fired simultaneously. Both guards hit the floor before they could raise their weapons. Dante kicked the door open. He descended into the dark. Marco grabbed Nia by her hair, hauling her up from the floor. He pressed the barrel of his gun to her temple. "Take 1 step, Dante, and I paint the wall with her," Marco screamed. Dante stepped into the cellar light. He was covered in soot and blood, none of his own. He lowered his gun, but his muscles were coiled tight. "Let her go, Marco," Dante said. His voice was terrifyingly calm. "And I will let you die quickly." "You lost," Marco shouted, his hand shaking. "The deadline is in 2 weeks. Even if you kill me, the Commissione knows. You have no heir born. You lose the seat." "Keep the seat," Dante said. He looked at Nia. His eyes softened for a fraction of a second. "I don't want the crown. I want my wife." Nia's breath hitched. He meant it. "Liar," Marco yelled. "You never cared about anything but power." Marco's finger tightened on the trigger. Nia saw the shift in his eyes. He was going to shoot. She didn't wait. She stomped her heel down on Marco's ankle step, hard. Marco howled in pain, his aim slipping for a microsecond. Bang! Dante fired, a single shot. It hit Marco squarely between the eyes. Marco crumbled backward, the gun falling from his hand. He hit the floor, dead before he landed. Nia stood there, trembling, staring at the body. Dante holstered his gun. He crossed the room in 2 strides. "Nia." He didn't grab her. He fell to his knees in front of her. He pulled a knife from his boot and cut the zip ties on her wrists. As soon as her hands were free, Nia collapsed. Dante caught her, burying his face in her neck. "I'm sorry," he rasped, his voice breaking. "I'm so sorry." Nia pulled back to look at him. She touched the bandage on his head. "You came," Nia whispered. "You burned it down." "I would burn the world," Dante swore. He placed a hand on her stomach. "Is the baby—" "We are okay," Nia said. Tears finally fell. "We are okay." Dante closed his eyes, exhaling a breath he had been holding for 24 hours. He rested his forehead against hers. "The contract is void, Nia. No more deadlines, no more cages. If you want to leave, I will give you half my fortune and let you go. But please, don't go." Nia looked at the man kneeling before her, the monster who had become her protector. "I can't go," Nia whispered. "Why?" "Because," Nia smiled through her tears, "I have a spring collection to finish and a husband to heal." Dante looked at her with pure worship. He stood up and lifted her into his arms, carrying her out of the darkness and toward the light. The sun over Lake Como was warm, smelling of jasmine and lemon. The Villa Moretti had been rebuilt. The east wing was new, the glass even stronger, the studio even bigger. Inside the great hall, a party was in full swing. It wasn't a stiff Mafia gathering. It was a mix of worlds, hardened men in suits drinking with flamboyant fashion designers and models. The House of Rossi had just launched the Queen of Milan collection, and it was the talk of Europe. Nia sat on a velvet sofa, dressed in a flowing gold gown of her own design. She looked regal, powerful, happy. "Signora Moretti?" A journalist approached her timidly. "Your collection is a triumph. They are calling you the Empress of Fashion. How do you balance it all?" Nia smiled. "I have a good support system." Across the room, Dante was standing with the tough, scary men of the syndicate, but he wasn't holding a cigar or a gun. He was holding a baby. Leo Moretti was 4 weeks old, with dark curls and his father's eyes. He was asleep in Dante's arms. The most feared crime lord in Italy was gently rocking back and forth, completely ignoring his generals to coo at his son. Dante looked up and caught Nia's eye across the room. The obsession was still there, the hunger, but the darkness was gone, replaced by a fierce, protective pride. He walked over to her, the crowd parting like the Red Sea. "He's sleeping," he whispered, sitting next to her. "He looks like an angel," Nia said, stroking the baby's cheek, "but he has your temper." "He is a prince," Dante corrected. He kissed Nia, a soft, lingering kiss that made the journalist blush and look away. "And he takes after his queen." Dante looked at his wife, then at his son. He had secured his legacy. He had kept his crown. but looking at Nia, he knew he had won something far more valuable. "Are you happy, Tesoro?" he asked quietly. Nia looked out at the lake, then back at the two men who owned her heart. "I'm happy, Dante," she said, leaning her head on his shoulder. "I'm home."